So hello everybody and welcome. Today I'm joined by Caryl Westmore. Hi Caryl.
Hello. Glad to be here.
And we're really glad that you've offered to share your amazing story with the work that you've done with EFT and Matrix Reimprinting, and also how you've gone on to actually use it with clients yourself.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes. So it's a pleasure to look back on the last few years and how it's taken my coaching work even further.
Yeah, so you've, just to pre-frame it for people who might be listening, you've had a number of big T traumas, as we call them, in your life. So would you just start off by telling us a little bit about how you've used Matrix Reimprinting to transform those events in your life?
Okay, well, the big aha for me was after years of talk therapy and quite a lot of inner child work, was discovering that there was emotional energy healing in about 2000. And that helped me address realizing there's an emotional brain and there's a thinking brain. And all the talk therapy is not going to get to the emotional brain. So once I had verification of that, and one of the best books that helped me was a book called Healing Without Freud or Prozac, which explained that by a psychiatrist, how we have the traumas are stored in the emotional and not the thinking brain where we talk it out. That's not the point. So I'd come to some terms now. I thought, wow, this emotional energy healing with the journey and with EFT in the early years of my work had helped me a lot. But then I used to have to say to people, once you've cleared and released, you need to put in the law of attraction, because that was also a big factor in my life. In fact, I would say the Abraham Hicks work, and before that, going back to my teens, I'd always been fascinated with how the law of attraction worked. But by the time I reached, after 25 years of marriage, and no matter how much work I'd done, I felt that there was something, and the way I described it to myself was I was doing all the law of attraction work up here. But somehow deep down in me, there was a vibration of, maybe from my childhood, I wasn't sure, but of painful memories that were keeping me stuck, basically. And it would take me years, and I thought, I don't have years. I need a way to get to that and root out that triggering memory or belief so that my law of attraction works better. And so along came the processes that were shown to me, like the journey and then EFT, and they did that, and I was thrilled. In fact, I reached the point where I said, I understand how it works, and I wrote my first book, You Can Break Free Fast, summarizing EFT, summarizing the case studies of how people had gone on to release. But then I'd say to them, and now fill up with the law of attraction. So I thought, my work is complete. I'd no sooner printed the book than I saw Carl Dawson doing a session on YouTube with Sasha Allenby, and out of the blue, I don't know how I found it, and I basically said to my husband, that's brilliant. He's got, we're bringing the releasing and healing from the past, and we're re-imprinting the law of attraction and a positive future all in one session. I have to learn that. I'm not complete. I thought I was. So I came back to England because I was in South Africa, and I lived 6 months, and I did Carl's Brighton course, followed by the fact that he then, together we agreed I would promote him in South Africa, because that's what I'd been doing with other healers, and then later I promoted you. Mm-hmm. And we brought the work, which I'd already pioneered with EFT and the journey, we brought the Matrix Reimprinting work to South Africa. And, it was just so wonderful to actually work with Carl and to be at those workshops and training. It was I really, got really deep into it. And it was at that time I realized and spoke to him about applying it to my goal success theory and method, because I've always loved the idea of having a vision and using the law of attraction for your goals. And so developed, with his blessing, the Matrix Goals Reimprinting, in which you apply Matrix Reimprinting, as I've described it and as he teaches it, to five steps in a goal success process, starting with just imagining, your any goal that you'd like, and carrying on through the steps, getting inspired, getting clear, getting focused, etc. But in that time, there were two big traumas that I thought I knew I needed to revisit. One was the birth and the birth of my son 30 years before, when I'd wanted, I was always alternative, even, when I was in my 20s, and I'd wanted what they called a Loboya birth, which was a gentle, loving, water. There was somehow water in it. And it didn't turn out like that because the cord was around his neck. My gynecologist had to use forceps. I was torn inside, and he'd stitched me up and gone. And by the time the nurses said she's bleeding and they had to send for a blood transfusion, they then had, my son was already in the incubator because he'd had the trauma of the forceps. And it just turned into what you could imagine was a very traumatic few hours. Let me breathe. And I always, my son as a baby didn't sleep for years properly through the night. And looking back, I realized that probably the forceps had disturbed his nervous system. But he was grown up now, and I worked with you, on the workshops, and I asked you to, I paid for a session with you to go back to that trauma. I mainly thought for him. I said, I don't want his life to be a struggle as it seems to be. And I'm sure it's somehow connected with the birth. And it was the most amazing thing to do that, to clear that birth trauma, and without even telling him, to clear it for him and to give him the birth that I'd always wanted in the Matrix. And later, unbeknownst to him, he happened to mention in a phone call that his life just was more enjoyable at the moment, And I just thought, it's so amazing. This work really is amazing. And, the birth work that we do with it, in the womb, I remember people used to come to me, my clients, and say, I've been depressed all my life. And I thought, that can't be. There must be a triggering moment when something made you depressed. But then I got the aha that it was in the womb, because they said their mother was permanently depressed. And so this work opened up the ability to do that, to actually tap on the echo. The second trauma, which had actually triggered my life's work, because I was a journalist until the year 1999-2000 in South Africa, was having a fire that burnt my house, and in which my border collie, our beloved border collie, died because she was asphyxiated. She didn't run down the steps. I was downstairs. The fire started in the bedroom, and she ran to the patio at the back, and she died in the fire. And that absolutely broke my heart open. In retrospect, it was the beginning of my work as a healer, because I'd never wanted to go there. And then my work began with the journey in EFT. But it was another time that I came to you and said, I want to do a matrix on the fire again. I've done some tapping, and I've realized in another session, which when I was first introduced to EFT, that I'd been telling myself it was my fault and I didn't deserve a house. And I had not lived in a house for the following few years. I'd been homeless, so to speak. But I got a lot of resolution with you and going into the light matrix, and the more spiritual aspect of putting my dog to rest, and knowing that he's always there with me. And honestly, I can speak about him now. His name was Sparky, and there's only love there now. And it really did help me a lot, that particular trauma. So those are on a personal note. I still keep using it. I have a buddy, and we're always swapping, a matrix buddy, because I believe, life continues, and it's always good to keep clearing. But with my clients, although I integrate some of the forgiveness work or the cutting the cords, I integrate some of the things I know. It always begins and ends with EFT, and then Matrix Reimprinting the future self, and bringing the future self, allowing a dialogue, at the end of a session, and interaction with which is what I love about Matrix Reimprinting. You can include that in it. It is a technique that they use in NLP and the timeline, etc. But once you've been into the depths of finding what's triggered a presenting issue, it's so healing, and you're already flowing in the matrix to go into the future and allow the person to see this issue even more healed. And in other words, you're upping the positivity of the session. So from that point of view, there's nothing like it, and it's the core of my work.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Caryl, if you had a message for Carl, what would you like to say to him?
I'd like to say, Carl, you're the best. And it's been such a privilege. I haven't seen you for a few years, but you really gave us an amazing tool, and I thank you for it.
Fabulous. And if anybody's listening to this, Caryl, and they're really sort of interested in the Matrix Goals Reimprinting that you do, how would they contact you?
Well, a good start is on our website, www.carylwestmore.com, CARYL, /goal stoppers. I've written a free book, which is I call it the 3 fatal goal stoppers and how to break free. And it's based on my original book of 10 goal stoppers. So they can go and get the first 3 goal stoppers, and then I can send them, the rest of the goal stoppers if they're still interested, or they can contact me. I am on Facebook, and there's actually a contact form on my site. Beautiful. Where people can contact me. So I'm always available for helping people clear their blocks, particularly writers and creatives. I find that satisfying. And funnily enough, people who are interested in making more money and finding love, because I found there's a connection. Some people come to me to find love, but their businesses boom and they stop looking for love and they get busy with their businesses. And other people come to me saying, they'd like to up their money, but the first few sessions, because I usually do at least a 5 or 10 session package, they're telling me about their relationship and love and money, and before we even get to the money. So those are the 3 areas I seem to be, helping people. And of course, I wrote the book Online Dating, Success Secrets, before I even had studied Matrix Reimprinting, because I realized that there were ways to clear your blocks to what I call, so that you can dump the love villains and attract the love heroes. And it's a kind of tongue-in-cheek book, but it was the very book that ended up with me meeting and marrying my husband when he was in the Middle East and I was in Cape Town. And he asked me, he said, I've been a widow for 10 years. Could you send me your book that you've written on online dating? And so I then put that book onto Kindle. So anyone else who's interested in what I call the secrets to successful online dating, because I've now been married 10 happy years to the man I met through online dating. That's another way that I can work with people. I've enjoyed helping people find love as well.
That's brilliant. And I love that connection that you found between money and relationship, because of course we need to have a relationship with money and ourselves. So it's all intertwined. Exactly. Brilliant. Caryl, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and also your story.
Pleasure.
I'm really happy for you because, I can feel as you're talking about those memories now that, both of them, although they were very traumatic, there's a lightness about them now when you talk about them. So
yes, thank you. Yeah, exactly. Okay, lovely connecting with you, and I hope we speak soon.
Thanks, Caryl.
Bye.